Hey everybody, I've got some framing thoughts for this week and what we're going to be doing. I'll try to keep it brief, but this will probably take several minutes. Last week, as you guys know, we started watching all those videos and doing the readings, and we're really getting into content. And as you were reading about nationalism and figuring out what it was, you may have had the thought that nationalism is many things at once, and that it's hard to summarize and define. To which I say, absolutely. You are so right. This is one of the things that I like best about upper division classes because we're moving beyond the simple kind of black and white definitions, that are easy to memorize and you can just kind of check the box, you got it. We're getting beyond the basics now, and we really get to delve into those gray areas and see that few things are as straightforward as we might like. So that's where we are. So if you're feeling a little frustrated by nationalism, yes. And that is actually one of the reasons that I always pick this as a topic for political geography, because there's so many sides of it and so many things to explore. At any rate, looking at these issues geographically allows us to compare and contrast nationalism and its effects on different places, how it plays out similarly sometimes, or can lead to very different outcomes. But nationalism, as you now know, encapsulates so much. And, there's civic spirit, right? There's the sense of patriotism and pride that's a piece of it. There's all the land and that tie to land. There's issues of control, issues of resources, xenophobia, imperialism, identity, that feeling of us versus them. There's celebration, there's sorrow. There's so much captured in nationalism and nationalistic narratives and struggles. So this week, we are going to continue our explorations and continue playing with these ideas. Specifically, we're going to look at one of the ways that nationalism manifests through different pieces of culture. Okay? And I just said one of the ways. We're going to look at several ways that nationalism manifests through culture in different places. Last week, for example, you may remember that in the Painter and Jeffrey reading on page 150, they quote Smith, who talked about cultural myths and symbols and values, and that those are the things that the claims of national identity are based upon. These are the kinds of things that we're really focusing in on this week. Another example of these kinds of things, pieces of culture, that build an idea, a narrative, is the political cartoon that you scrolled past to get to this video. It's a political cartoon that was made during World War II, and it was drawn by a man named Theodore Geisel, who became very famous, not all that long after that, for being Dr. Seuss. So I really like that cartoon just as an illustration of nationalism. And then in the reading from Benedict Anderson last week, just to reference another one of your readings, there was that discussion of folklore and poetry, and the fact that having a language of one's own for a culture is key to nationalism. That the advent of the printing press allowed the languages then to spread and to solidify, to kind of coalesce, and to develop a characteristic or an identifiable body of literature, art, poetry, all of those things that are also vital to the construction of nationalism. So that's some of the things that we're coalescing towards. This week, you are going to start with a reading by John Rennie Short. And he is another well-known human and political geographer who talks a lot about cultural narratives. Right? And for the word narrative, the way I'm using it, right, it's not just the storyline or something in a book, or narration. There's more to what a cultural narrative is. It is the ideas and the stories that we tell ourselves and about others. It's all of those building blocks and the messages that we send, both consciously and unconsciously. And it talks about who you are and who they are. So John Rennie Short has ideas about how these narratives are created. You actually saw him already in one of the first videos that you watched back in Module 0 about why studying human geography is important. That is actually Dr. Rennie Short. In this reading for this week, he has some interesting things to say about national myths that we've created in the United States specifically, and how they relate to how we view nature and wilderness and our relationship to them as Americans, and how that ties into our national identity as Americans. Then we're going to explore some other pieces of culture that reflect nationalism, starting with a couple of music videos from Mongolia, which have led to some interesting discussions about whether the group, the Who, is being nationalistic or whether they're mocking nationalism. There's different interpretations here, and I'm going to look forward to your perspective. There's also a page to go visit a website about nationalistic art in India. So we're looking at several different media. And then we're going to actually use those resources, these music videos, that art, as a springboard into the first of our unit projects that will be due in a few weeks, on March 12th, as a matter of fact, at 11:59 p.m. As always, right? That's always the time where we have the due date. So that will be when your project is due, the paper. Okay? Basically, what you're going to do is find some examples of material culture. Material culture is the things that people create to reflect their culture that you can touch, that you can put your hands on. So movies, fiction, poetry, music, protest signs, public monuments. You can do anything that you are interested in that reflects a culture. And you need to analyze at least one piece of media that is from the United States, one piece of whatever it is that you pick. And then the second item needs to be from another country. And then you're going to analyze them for the messages that they convey about nationalism and the identity that they reflect. You know, those narratives that you'll read about in the Rennie Short article. If you would like to do more than one item each, from the US or from another country, you can do a couple more, but I don't want you to overwhelm yourself. Stay focused, stay narrow. Do not pick a massive set of propaganda posters from World War I, for example. Okay? Just give yourself a tighter focus on that. I also would prefer that if you want to explore more than just one or two or three items, that you pick similar items from additional countries. Okay, so maybe you want to look at movies from the United States and China, and then pick a movie from Nigeria. Okay, so that you are getting a wider range of cultures and narratives. In any case, more details and the full directions are available in the project module, the project portal in Module B, which has all the projects listed. Also keep in mind that while your final written project is due March 12th, there are a couple preliminary deadlines to keep an eye on. First, Wednesday, March 3rd, you need to let me know what items you've picked to analyze for this project. There's a portal to turn those in to let me know what you have picked. You can use a text box in Module B below the directions. And there's also a portal so that a week later, on Wednesday, March 10th, you can upload the links to a website or an excerpt or whatever is appropriate for the kind of media that you picked, the kind of material culture, so that I can collect them all together and make the images, whatever, available to everyone so that we can see what you're analyzing while you listen to your presentation, while we listen to your presentation. There we go. And speaking of the presentations, those are due the same day as the paper, March 12th, Friday, and we're going to be using Flipgrid for that. Okay? And all of the portals for all of those things are live as of Monday, February 15th. Whew, that felt like a lot, but there's a whole series of kind of stops, check-ins. There's the word, check-ins for this project. A couple more quick thoughts, and then I'll turn you loose to go explore the materials for the week. The last part of this week's collection asks you to consider how the internet and the ways that people use it and social media are changing nationalism and perceptions of it, perceptions of nationalism. So I hope that you find that thought-provoking, especially considering the ways that social media has been used in the world of national politics in the last few months in this country, and the fact that a number of individuals and groups have been banned on Twitter and Facebook and a variety of other sites. So this week's discussion obviously focuses on the readings listed below. We don't have a lecture this week because we don't have any new introductory concepts like we did last week. Okay? So other than that, I can't wait to see where your explorations take us. Let me know what you think of the readings. The response paper is up, the discussion is up. But as always, if you have feedback, questions or ideas or anything you'd like to talk about, shoot me an email. Okay? Talk to you soon.